I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, and I'm located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Monroe, Washington. And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey folks, thanks for listening to Wheel Talk. We would love some more interaction with you all throughout this future episodes, and we would love to hear some listener questions. They may get on the episode.
Yeah, just submit them to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com, or you can submit them on our Instagram at wheeltalkpodcast. Thanks.
All right, we're live.
Hi. Hi.
Hello. Happy Thursday. This is not typical. We're usually
Happy
here on Mondays or
Thursday.
early in the week. All right,
Yes.
So how's your day going today?
Today's okay. I have been fasting from throwing, as we've all known. But a swift realization of my bank accounts made me aware that I actually need to throw a little bit. So
Does that mean after you did your plant, because your last sale was your plant stakes, right? Your flash sale.
Mm-hmm.
That was your last income coming in,
yeah,
and that was what, last week, 2 weeks ago?
that was last week.
Okay, and then you're still fulfilling those orders over the next couple weeks.
They should all be done in a couple days, actually, on the 26th. So
They'll be shipped out in 2 days too.
no.
That's what I meant. I meant you'll be at the end of your current making cycle.
Potentially on the 28th.
Okay.
So I have to figure out what boxes I want to use for those. Anyway, and so then I was like, and then my best friend has been like, are you going to do a flash sale with wine glasses? Because I really want wine glasses. And I realized I haven't done one in a while, and everybody's getting drunk right now, so it might be a perfect time. And
Yeah, everybody's drinking, right? You're stuck at home. I mean,
yeah,
I would
everybody's
say
drinking.
most people drink more on average these days than when they had to go out.
Yeah, and then I was also thinking a while ago about doing a mystery box with I have a friend who owns a wine bar, and doing like get 2 glasses and a bottle of wine for a certain price, and you don't get to choose what it is.
You don't get to choose the bottle of wine?
No, so it's either red, white, or a bubble. And
you don't even get to specify like dry or sweet?
No, it's a mystery box.
If I got a dry bottle, I'd be like, all right, we're saving that for guests.
Yeah, that's why you would want to get like a white wine, because all white wines are like sweet. Anyway, moving on. So,
or at least semi-sweet.
So I was thinking about that, but I don't know if we're gonna do that or not. Like, I'm really bad at planning collaborative stuff. But anyway, I think I made like 45 wine glasses so far, and then I had like 30 in the wings, and so so that'll be the next sale. But I'm gonna try and make them before I sell them this time. So I'm going to try and like glaze everything and then put them up as an update.
Yeah. What is that? How is that mentality different? Why did you decide to make them first before putting them up for sale?
I was just thinking that it might be funner, and it's a little bit more stressful to make them on demand. But then I don't really want it to be a flash sale this time. Like, I want to sell them full price.
Okay.
So
plus they're gonna get them within like 3 or 4 days, ideally. Right?
Yeah.
Versus,
and I just,
what, 2 weeks or something like that is what your normal flash sale?
No, a flash sale turnaround is a month.
Okay.
So it's it's a pretty far turnaround. So I was thinking that it might be fun just to maybe like switch it over to that kind of a sale for this time and see how it goes. And see who orders stuff, and plus then people know exactly what they're getting, and I can do fun glazes and stuff. So
cool.
So we'll see.
I'm kind of thinking something around that recently, because I'm doing this planter sale this weekend, right?
Yes.
And I got a bunch of glaze options, obviously,
Yeah.
and I've got a bunch of pieces like ready to go.
Yeah.
But I probably have like 4 or 5 of each color. But the thing that I don't have, if people were to buy them, are all the planter trays ready to go. Like if every single person bought a planter with a tray, I would not have enough to ship them out within 2 days. So, I'm getting some trays fired today, which is actually what I was waiting on the kiln, and I'm trying to offer trays that don't have any glaze on them at all, and they're just raw, but they're vitrified. And also ones that do have color, and then let them pick between the two. And then I'm like, or do I offer these and say these certain styles are considered like made to order and having them delivered within 2 or 3 weeks so that I can get time to either glaze the ones that I have ready in that style and the planter trays, or if that's just going to like feel like I'm drowning because I've never done anything made to order before, or am I just overestimating the number of orders I'm actually going to get? So,
I don't know. I mean, I really think that you should just do white trays, but that's just me. Or black trays or something. But associated color trays, I think maybe.
I think the plain ones would go well. Like the bottom edge of the planter is already like the speckled clay, for instance, and if you just add a speckled tray underneath, it's really just aesthetically, it's still kind of similar to it. So I think those will be fine.
Use this as like a test, you know.
Yeah.
Test so, like do whatever you have. You said you have 4 of each.
Yeah. So what I was planning on doing was releasing only speckled ones, because those are the ones that I have all of the trays actually like pretty ready. So I have probably 4 trays and 4 of each of the actual pots in speckled clay. Mm-hmm. And they're already photographed and everything. So people can buy them with tray, without tray for 2 different prices. And then I was going to post all of those. So like 4 quantity. And then I was going to post some with stamps on them. And those are going to be single sale. So those are going to be sold as is, only one item. And then we're going to gauge how those sell. If they go well and people are like, oh man, I really wanted a stamped one, I didn't get it. I'm thinking, do I keep that single listing of that individual stamped one and relist it, but make it as a made to order? And then I accept orders for like a week. And then I cut it off for like a number of items that are considered made to order. And then I just go back and glaze them over that week and like get more quantities of them and ship them out. I don't know. Maybe
I think you're overthinking.
Yeah. So as of today, I'm going to get out more planter trays tomorrow out of the kiln. That should give me a little more confidence in being able to ship something out within 3 days, probably 3 or 4 days. And I'm going to post what I have on hand.
Yeah, I mean, let's say you put the ones that you had on hand out. And then you put white ones and just bare ones. Okay? Let's say you did bare ones, right? Like
well,
no
when I offer the ones I have now, I'm going to offer them planter, no tray, planter, colored tray that matches it, or planter with a speckled tray or whatever, like bare clay. So that if I get a bare clay order tray, then I can use my 15 bare clay trays, and they can go with any of those colors that people order it without a color. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I don't have to make sure I have like, okay, I have 4 of this green and 4 of this white and 4 of this red. I can be like, okay, somebody might order a red one with a bare clay one, and it doesn't matter because I have plenty of those bare clay trays. I don't have to glaze any more red ones to go with it if people order it that way. Or should I just say there's no or certain ones I only have bare clay available?
I think the least amount of options are best. So here's what I think. What if you put your planters up, okay, and then you have an option of the planter with a bare plate, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So your planter is how much money?
16.
$16. Okay. And with the tray, how much is the tray?
28.
Okay, 16 and then 28 with the tray.
Yeah.
Okay. That is just with the bare tray option. Okay. It's on the thing. Okay, it's on the board.
It's listed as
right. That's listed as
planter,
an option under that planter. Okay.
Okay.
And then make a whole nother listing for just trays. Okay.
Okay.
Just trays, and those trays, because let's think of it this way: it costs you less money, less time, less space to make the bare trays, right?
Yeah.
Because you stack them.
Yeah, if they're bare trays, yeah.
Yeah, because you stack them, right? So that's ideally what you want to sell. That is what you would like to sell. So you make that an option with your actual item, okay? And then if somebody wants, is the default. And if somebody wants to order another tray that's the color of your items, then you have that be a separate item and have all the different colors as a variable up to choose.
And there's quantities for them.
With quantities of what you have in stock. Okay? And then you can see what people are choosing, and then you're not losing out on anything, and you're also not having to make them extra, you know? I mean, if somebody ordered, if you had like 20 bare trays ordered and you only had 5 made, you could throw 15 of them into a kiln easy and get them out in 3 days.
Yeah.
Like, that's
especially
no
since
problem.
I can stack them. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's maybe I mean, what do I know?
That's a good idea though. I think I need to readjust my photography for them then a little bit so that my first picture is with a bare tray instead of with the matching tray.
Yeah.
For every single one.
Like, people are just motivated by a picture. You know, every single flash sale that I've ever done, this took us a while to figure this out, but every single flash sale that I've ever done, whatever picture I have for the flash sale is the most amount of colors options. So, like, if I have white bowls, like when I did my shallow bowl flash sale, I had a stack of white bowls, and I sold 115 white bowls out of 200. Okay? Like, what the actual fuck? Like, so, and every time, like, when I did my wine glass flash sale, I had a Italian gray one. All the Italian gray ones, there was, like, way more Italian gray than there normally ever is. And so people are so inclined, if they see a picture and they see that it looks good, they're going to order it that way. So I think that maybe...
Okay. So then do I need multiple listings? Do I need a listing of a red one with a speckled tray and then a separate listing with the green one with the speckled tray? All separate listings so that I can keep up with my quantities of actual, like, green planters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Do they have stamps on them? Are these the ones with stamps?
No.
Okay, cool.
First, we're just talking the ones without stamps
Thank
that I have multiples of, because I was kind of listing them like, okay, here, and I also have a photo that has like 4 of them that you can see that they're a little different, but they're the same color.
Right.
Okay, you're going to get a
an issue with
variation here. It's not going to be exact.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think if you make a single listing for green and then have it with the planter tray and then have an option of green planter by itself and then green planter with bare tray by itself. And I would not say bare tray. I would just say tray.
With tray.
Maybe,
okay.
Like,
and then
or
the other one would be like
unglazed.
matching tray or just, I would just say planter tray as its own listing, and then I would just
have its own color options.
Like a stack of planter trays in the picture or something like that.
Exactly. With one planter on it, right next to it.
Yeah.
So, like, have a stack of planters, trays, and then have one planter with a tray under it. And maybe either mismatch it or do it matching. Whatever looks better.
Okay.
Okay?
Interesting. Yeah. This whole made to order, like, I don't know how people do that.
You should probably get a second opinion with somebody that actually sells online. I'm just saying, if I was buying it online, that's how I'd want it.
Well, that does help me though, because you're saying what do you ideally want to sell? I want to sell a planter with a tray that's bare, because the bare are interchangeable for anything
so
as
that's
long as
the
it's the same
option.
clay.
That's the option you should give them. I learned a long time ago that the more options you give them, the harder it is to choose, and the more likely they'll just walk away. That's what happens at the shop, like at the shop and at Leavenworth all the time. They're like, wow, there's so many color options. And then they're just like, I can't choose. And then they leave.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, shit.
See, I did that with my little shot glass planters recently. It's one listing. The one listing has essentially two variations. They pick a color of pot, and then they pick one of the 5 plants.
Yeah.
Luckily, that's been okay, and it's really easy for quantity and listing, and I can update the quantities pretty easily of colors I have, and it's gone pretty smoothly. But I feel like the planters, it's too much to collapse into one listing.
Yeah, there's too many colors.
Yeah. So that's what my day, and yeah, I've been firing that kiln to try and get more planter trays ready, and then also photography and stuff like that. I actually took a half day off work tomorrow, even though we're at home all the time anyways. So I'm going to use that half day to get ready with all that stuff.
Oh, and tell them about your kiln.
Oh, so I got my kiln.
This kind of actually goes into what we're talking about today in a roundabout way.
Sort of. It's kiln maintenance stuff, but my kiln relay went out last week. Yeah, my top element just was not, it died after an hour and wasn't working. So opened it up, decided to look into it. It's the relay, which is what goes between the power source and the element to like tell it, hey, you need to go on now. You need to go on now.
Yeah, so basically if your kiln stops clicking, if you have a manual kiln and it stops, like, it either A, is always on, or B, just doesn't turn on and it's not clicking, that's your relay. It's not anything else but a relay.
Yeah.
It's the thing that
like,
tells it to turn on and off.
the element's out. Yeah. Yeah, your relay, replacing a relay is going to be a lot cheaper than replacing an element. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Becca had that element,
I
or that
saved
relay
it from an old
sitting
kiln.
around. Yeah. And then she mailed it to me and also mailed me a birthday present. So.
Yeah, Ryan
also,
had a birthday on Monday.
She was keeping some secrets from me. Apparently, she was, I don't know the right word, canoodling?
Canoodling.
Canoodling
No.
with my wife.
No, that sounds terrible.
Word?
I was
What's
in
the right
cahoots.
word?
I was in cahoots with your wife.
Cahoots. Okay.
But it wasn't really her idea. I just told her what was going on so she didn't blow it. And
Okay.
I blocked
and Becca
Ryan.
was playing all coy with me. She was like, "Did you get this message?" And then apparently she blocked me, so I was not following her anymore. And I was like, "What the heck is Instagram doing?"
I blocked Ryan for all the day on Saturday, and he had no idea. And it was great. Yeah, so Ryan turned 29 on Monday. Happy birthday.
Yay. It was a good day.
Good. I'm glad. Okay.
Good balance of stuff.
So what are we doing next?
All right. We'll do a quick read of a review that we got because we like that process. We read one a couple episodes ago, and we wanted to read another one that we appreciate you all leaving reviews for us. I don't know what other platforms you can leave reviews on besides Apple Podcasts. I'm assuming this is the only one, but I'm not sure. If people know of other platforms that you're leaving reviews on, let us know, because I don't really know much about other platforms.
Yeah.
So this one is from RN2B on the 26th of February. So the title was My Favorite Pottery Podcast. And they go in to say, got into pottery just shy of 2 years ago, and I am sampling any ceramic podcasts I have been able to find. I've been very pleased with the variety of podcast hosts, formats, and information available. However, Wheel Talk is my favorite because I perceive a strong sense of authenticity in the hosts. The interaction is genuine and entertaining. Noticed a dramatic improvement in the presentation since initial episodes, and information is always relevant.
Nice.
See, I really strive for the authenticity. I think you and I would both agree that we're trying to be honest and not super like edgy, like reluctant with what we're talking about, or like.
Yeah, we talk about everything. clearly.
Yeah.
I just did a therapy session on how to sell things online, and I don't even know how to sell things online.
So thanks so much for that review, and we'll get to another one next time. So,
Yay!
do we also want to answer a listener question?
I've got it in a second. Do I have it? Do I have it?
Do we?
Okay, got it. I have a question for beginners. What's the best clay for hand building and which is best for throwing? I know you, Ryan, from what you guys have talked about, don't do hand building so much, but I know Becca does. Thanks. KLIB 55. Well, I don't know.
It depends, right?
Totally, but like, it's really whatever your flavor is. Now, I have a student that loves to use paper clay for hand building, and a lot of people like to use paper clay for hand building because it's really strong. Like, you could use those for sculptural work.
Would you say that's a more advanced method of... Because you have to make that, right? You can't buy that from...
No, I buy it.
You can buy paper clay in a 50-pound box from a store?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I buy a paper clay. And it's kind of like gritty and stuff. And that's why I don't like it, is because it's super gritty. But, yes, you can buy paper clay. A lot of people use that for like sculptures and stuff. I would say if you are making large things, trying to find something with a little bit of grog in it. And what grog is basically like little tiny particles that kind of bind the clay together a little bit more. So like sand or silica sand or something like that. I know that a lot of my friends that do large platters put silica sand in their large platters so that they don't break. Which you can also buy and then just add it in at a pug mill stage, or you can wedge it in. So
yeah, I would say any kind of hand building, it doesn't hurt to have any kind of, like, fine grog at least. You should have some kind of fine grog or something like that at least. Usually hand building has some kind of grog.
Yeah, I hand build with porcelain, so I'm going against all of those rules. But I also hand build very small items most of the time. So I would say if you're making small things, getting away with porcelain, not that hard. But using stoneware is a really good hand building clay. Yeah. Okay, so for throwing, I use porcelain. I use the same clay across the board. But B-Mix is a good clay for both hand building and for throwing. What do you use for throwing?
Is that Laguna B-Mix, or is that a different type?
I like the Aardvark B-Mix, actually.
B-Mix. B-E-E mix.
The B-Mix. I like the Aardvark B-Mix better, but Laguna would be fine too, I think.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of struggle with like handle attachments and stuff with Laguna B-Mix. That must be the porcelain thing. See, honestly, I've never thrown with porcelain.
It is.
So, yeah, if you're talking about attaching stuff and all that, porcelain may not be like. Imagine hand building coils or something with porcelain. That would be not good, right? That would not be a good solution.
I mean, people do it, don't get me wrong, but you're just going to work a lot harder. I would much rather use like a stoneware. Also, you can always use vinegar as your slip instead of using slip, use vinegar. That seems to help a little bit too.
I like to throw with Mudworks clay, so I use Kentucky Mudworks Iceman, which is a 5 to 7 stoneware. And it's white, no grog. I like to throw with no grog. Just my finish, I'm a big ribber, so I like metal rib on the outside a lot.
Yeah.
Because I like that finish and the compressed, smooth surface on the outside. That's kind of my preference. And like when I wire stuff off, I don't go back in and trim and burnish and stuff. So if I were to use something with grog in it, it would leave scratchy kind of marks, and I'd have to go back in and push that back in. Like, I don't want to do that.
Do you wipe off with a wet sponge, or do you just like thumb it off and that's it?
Yeah, I just run a thumb at where the sidewall meets the foot, and I don't even touch the middle of the bottom at all.
Okay. So here's the thing, if you have anything with some sort of like grog, when you do, there's a tendency to, like, if you were to wipe it off with a sponge afterwards, after you're done throwing, after you're done hand building, anything, if you wipe it off with a sponge, all the grog is going to come up to the surface of the clay and it's going to be gritty. And so that's why you'll see that a lot of people that throw maybe quote unquote finer items, I would imagine use a less groggier clay because it's a little bit easier to finish.
Right. But the speckled clay that I use from Laguna, the 608, that's a little groggy.
Yeah.
But it's nice to throw with. I mean, the clay with no grog and very slippy kind of, it's going to produce a lot of slop and slip, and you kind of risk that if you're throwing with it, and it might not be as forgiving. But the speckled clay that I use might be more forgiving as I'm throwing, but I need to make sure that there's water there because it's going to produce drag a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And I have to rehydrate. So that's something to consider. And I kind of like that look when I metal rib off the outside of that speckled clay. And I kind of like the look of that grittiness just a little bit.
No, a ton of people do love it. And I mean, I love it. I like receiving pots that are like that. I just don't like throwing pots like that.
Yeah, so it's kind of, it all comes down to preference, but wheel throwing generally less grog, hand building more grog.
That's the tea.
Yeah.
That's the tea. Okay, what are we talking about today, Ryan?
All right, so we're going to talk about venting your kiln safely. A lot of people are out there maybe having to move to a home studio with the situation going on, and they got to figure out a way to work in their home somehow. And maybe you're like, oh, you know what? I want to start a home studio, or I want to get a kiln, or I want a wheel, or whatever. So you're trying to figure out ways to do it safely in your home. And we see a lot of questions on Clay Buddies, I think, lately about how do you vent this or how do you vent that? It's always a question that comes up, I feel like.
I feel so too. I feel like I am the best example of what not to do while venting in kilns.
Should we start with so there's a bunch of different situations of like what you're working with, I guess, for your studio. Do you want to talk about like how you started at your old house or something like that?
I mean, sure. I would like to preface this with no one, and I mean no one, told me about venting a kiln when I started doing pottery. So, with that being said, the very first kiln that I had was a baby kiln, just like Ryan's little tiny 3 cubic foot kiln. I actually have one too. And, I got it for $170.
When we're always talking cubic foot, it always just blanks in my mind how big that is. Like, how would you measure, if you were to measure the outside of it, would it be like an 18-inch wide by 20-inch tall-ish? Is that a good guesstimate for people that are, no?
No.
I don't know how big.
The inside of a cubic, I believe it's 16 by 16.
16 by 16, okay. So usually one that has a solid body, it's not in multiple pieces, or it could be in like 2 pieces maybe.
Yeah, it might be in 2 pieces.
It's about up to your waist maybe.
Yeah, it's small. It is small. Your shelves, I think, are like 12 to 13 inches or something like that.
It's not a test kiln that's like tiny.
It might be 20 inches tall. You're right. It might be 20 inches tall. I don't know. But it for sure is 16 inches wide.
Okay. That's a good starter kiln for anybody out there that's trying to get firings frequently enough to where you're not cranking things out for a long time.
Totally. And it's a great kiln. And I bisqued in that type of kiln for a long time. So I put that in my basement. There was 2 windows in my basement. That was it. And fired most of my stuff in that. And I just didn't go downstairs when the kiln was running. Really.
So you just prop the 2 windows open any time of year?
No, I didn't even open up the windows. Nobody told me. Nobody
Did it smell funky or anything like that, or?
Of course it did.
Okay.
And
that's a sign to think about if it's smelling funky.
Yeah, if it smells weird, like open a window, put a fan in there or something. Going out, not going in. And yeah, I mean, it was just like no one told me. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you. But just don't do that. Don't do that. Don't
So
just
how
put
did
it in
you
your basement.
how did you progress from there? Did you have kilns? You said you only bisqued in that one. Did you also have a separate kiln that was in a different spot?
Yes. So
Okay.
I would fire my glaze kiln. Thank God this was my only options. I almost put my glaze kiln in my living room. I would fire my glaze kiln in on my front porch, and the front porch was closed off with OSB and visqueen plastic, and and so it was just out in the open. Basically, it was covered up from the rain, but there was total air circulation.
Yeah.
There was nothing.
It wasn't going into the house at all.
Yeah. Oh, I just figured it out, by the way. Inside dimension of a 3.3 cubic foot kiln is 17.5 inches diameter and 22.5 inches deep. So.
And is that the outer? That's the outer shell.
That's the interior dimension.
Interior diameter. Okay.
Yeah. So I was wrong. So it was just out in the open and everything was fine. Now, a lot of kiln companies will tell you that you need to open up your kiln an inch for the first 1,000 degrees of firing.
Like prop it and then take the peep out at the top and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you don't have a vent. Like if you don't have any vent that comes out of the bottom, which Ryan will explain in a second. I have never had vents on my kilns. Ever. And so I usually prop it up a little bit just to get some of the crap out of it. But also it's not only to help your off gas your pieces, but it is helpful to your kiln for like a longer life. The elements, not like consuming all the elements with all those toxins and stuff. It is helpful to vent it until you get to about usually I close it at like 700 degrees. Now, if I'm not gonna, I can't believe I'm saying this on a podcast.
We're gonna get to some nitty gritty that I'm sure you're gonna have some answers that some people are gonna be like, hell no. Okay.
What? If I'm not gonna be there, I'm gonna close my kiln lid. Okay, and then I'm gonna walk away. Now, I'm gonna preface this also with saying I have footage, like cameras on my kilns all the time. I also have anxiety, so I check them all the time. But the reality is I cannot sit next to my kiln 24/7. We almost always have a kiln running unless we're in the coronavirus. But so if I
so that was your start, and that's kind of where you're at now.
I'm pretty much at the same place now.
Except it's in a back room that's isolated, and
it's in a back room. It's isolated. We close the doors, but also
do you have a window and stuff? Don't you have a door with a screen on it that you can vent?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I have a
That you
back
can
door with a screen on it, and if I'm firing during the day, then I just open it up. Nobody's there at night, so I'm not totally worried about it, except for cats. I'm not totally worried about it.
I thought you improved your situation since you've been out of there. I thought you had vents on that.
No, I'm working on it.
Okay.
But I was gonna get to my next thing. Get to my next thing. I went to Josh Himes' nursery a while ago, and I noticed that he has these awesome venting fans that they use for the nursery, and they're at the very end. And so the problem with my studio is that most of the walls are brick, except for there's one section of wall that's wood. So venting out of the shop is hard because you're drilling a 4-inch hole.
Right.
And also it costs a lot of money to vent to get 3 kilns vented out would probably end up being like $500-$600. So
shit, more than that.
No, if I did it the DIY way.
Oh. Okay.
So I And also, I've got my firing schedule down. Like, I figured it out. And venting your kiln changes your firing schedule. It, like, brings a lot more air into the kiln or out of the kiln, so it, like, affects the cool down, it affects everything. And I'm, like, a little bit scared of that. So...
But don't you see the benefit of the cool down going faster?
Not really, no.
Especially with your quick turnarounds, though. You're not...
No. The cooldown's fine.
Okay.
The turnaround, because the slower the cooldown, the better the colors look and the glazes look. So I have a really nice medium, It's
but you also haven't had the opposite, right?
Right.
So you don't
So
really know.
I want to get
what it would look like
a greenhouse fan and put it in my shop, because also another problem is, like, I would put a window there and just put a box fan in the wall, but I have homeless people in the back of my shop all the time, so I need to have something that's secure. So I'm thinking a greenhouse fan is a really good idea, because you can just install it and it closes when it's not working, and it's metal.
It looks really heavy, right? It's like a big metal.
Yeah, they're pretty heavy. But I saw them. You can get one that's like 12 inches. It's not very big. Cool. But pretty powerful. And you can plug it into just a regular wall.
Nice.
So that's my plan.
All right. So I'll talk about my early situation.
So don't do what Becca does.
And what I have now. So my first kiln that I got was similar to her sizing that she was talking about, 3.5 foot or 3.5 cubic foot. I had it at my parents' house. There was a window right above it, and I actually went out and did the research with the venting and all that stuff, and I got an Orton Vent Master, which is going to be one that we're going to talk about later. That's a downdraft vent. Basically, there's holes in the bottom. There's a hose that goes to the vent. The vent pulls air through holes in the top of the kiln, through the kiln, pulls the toxins out, and goes out a dryer vent out the window. So that's what I did when I first started. Essentially, the window wasn't really, like, you couldn't take the whole thing out. It probably opened about 45 degrees.
Yeah.
And I kind of had to, like, fashion the dryer vent to go out, and then I kind of had, like, a piece that made up the excess part of the window that the hole didn't make up.
Right.
And we kind of just popped it in there during the winter, or if it was during the summer, I just kind of left it in there with the window propped open, and there was always a screen on it, so it just kind of vented out that way.
Right.
So that's what I had at my parents', and since I got the home here about 4 or 5, we've been here about 4 or 5 years now. Basically, I have that exact same setup here, except now I have an extra hose on the bottom of that vent master that goes to each kiln. So I have 2 hoses that go to the same vent. It's mounted on the wall, and they both exhaust out the same hole in the wall.
Can you fire both kilns at the same time, and it vents both of them?
It can vent up to 2 kilns. I can't physically fire both of them at the same time because I only have one outlet.
Plugs.
But I have fired it where one of them has finished. I've unplugged it and plugged the other one in and started the other one, and they both go. So one of them's venting down and one of them's venting up.
Got it.
So that's basically what I have right now. And yeah, so I've always done that. I've always been in a basement situation with window access or something like that.
Can I say something while all these people are silently judging me for my decisions?
Sure.
I try to fire my kilns when nobody is there. So, like, people are not getting...
And right now, you only have electronic controller kilns, correct? You do not have kilns that are kilns that you have to monitor a little bit or anything like that?
Correct. I don't have to monitor them at all.
Okay.
So, anyway, I just wanted to say that. Like, I'm not putting anybody in danger. No students. No, like, I'm not...
Depending on what's... I guess depending on what fumes and whatever is in the air, how long is it in the air, how much air circulation is actually in your building that is replacing that.
While people are in the building, the door is always open and there's a fan always sticking outside. Like, the fumes are pretty much always releasing from the shop. So, I just thought I'd say that.
So that's kind of the situation I was in. I mean, most people, I guess we can kind of go into like some different situations that you might be in with your setup. Maybe you have the ability to have it on a back patio or outdoors somewhere that's covered.
Yeah. Or
That's
garage.
pretty good because, I mean, essentially all you're trying to do with the venting, you're just trying to get the stuff from the kiln out to Mother Nature. So it's not in your physical space.
Totally. And like, yeah, like don't be there. Like if you are firing in your garage and let's say your wheel is right next to your kiln, take a break. Don't be working on your kiln. Like don't be firing your kiln while you're working on your wheel. If you have like the vent system that you have, I would imagine that it's fine to be doing that. But if you're doing like a makeshift venting system like I do, don't be there. Like, make it a point to not be there.
It
like,
depends
that's
on
why
what
we
space
fire,
it's in, right?
That's why we fire at night, because once most of the firing is done, then everybody's out, and you know there's no issue with it actually being in the air of people. So, yeah.
So there's that option. The only other thing that you may need to consider with doing it at night. For instance, in my studio, obviously my furnace is in the basement garage studio-ish. So the furnace is there, and then there's vents that go above my kiln and spread throughout the house. But there's actually a vent that is an input into the room, like a vent, not a return, but an exhaust or whatever you want to call it, a vent that goes into the room. So potentially, if I were not venting it, I could risk that the gases would escape from the kiln. They would go up into the vent and spread throughout the house. So you need to keep that in mind depending on where your ventilation is, if you're in a basement or something like that. So
yeah, like it can go
so
up
firing
through your house,
at night
worse.
might actually be worse because you're sleeping and it's spreading throughout the house. I mean, you can smell it.
I have a store, so there's times that there's no one there.
Yeah,
so
keep that in mind.
Like I have a different situation from a lot of people.
Yeah. So you may have that option with it outdoors, which is great because that makes it even easier. You could have a basement with some kind of window accessibility, whether it's a window, like I said earlier, that's like it opens partially. You know, that window is only like 6 or 8 inches tall. One of those basement windows, it's like 6 or 8 inches tall by 3 feet wide. I don't know. I mean, a lot of places don't have basements around, but depending on where you're at in the country. But yeah, that kind of window that you can put a vent hose or something in the window.
It's basically just a dryer hose. And you can also make one up too. Like you can makeshift your own ventilation.
We'll talk about that here in a bit.
Yeah.
So you might have that situation. You might have a basement with glass blocks, which I actually have that in my basement as well. And you can get, for instance, in my basement, I have a dryer on one side of the basement that needs to vent out a glass block enclosure. So you basically have to get a glass block removed.
Yeah.
Because maybe you don't have a window that you can open and close, but you have a glass block situation that you need to get one removed and you need an attachment installed in there that allows you to vent out of it. So that could be an option. I actually got that recently done because I had to vent out my water heater. So things like your dryer needs to vent, your water heater needs to vent, things like that. So you're already doing some kind of situation like that in your home already to get those fumes out of the house. So you just think of it that way. You need some other way to vent that kind of thing out of the house. I mean, you have that in your bathroom if you're venting your shower, for instance. So you could have that situation. It's pretty cheap to get those kind of things replaced too. Or you could have a garage maybe with an open, where you can open a window, you can open a side door, you can open the garage door. So I would say that's probably one of the most common options that people have, where they fire in their garage. They have all the hookups out there, and then they open the garage door and turn a fan on or something like that. Or
really, and was I gonna say? I think that a lot of people vent because they think that it's for the kiln, and it is not. It is for you. I think that it's probably minimal damage that it does to the kiln. I mean, that's an unprofessional opinion of what it does to the kiln, but
I did a little research. We can get down to that at the additional stuff.
Yeah.
What the
well,
benefits,
when I was talking to the ladies at Olympic Kiln, I was like, I'm not gonna vent. I can't vent right now, like, with what I've got going on. And she's like, really, it's not gonna be,
she's talking about for the health of your kiln.
Yeah, for the health of the kiln, you're not gonna notice that much of a difference. You know, if I was, and especially somebody who's firing like once a week isn't gonna notice that much of a difference.
Yeah. All right, so we can go into the kind of the different options of ways that you can vent it, whether it's a cheap option or a more professional option, or other things you can do. I guess we'll go with the cheap option. What kind of an example of how you would, let's say you're in a garage and you do the open window side door kind of thing. How would you suggest somebody venting that way? I mean, it's probably similar to what you've already said, but...
Yeah, I mean, I would say I have 5 box fans in my back room. And that's, like, kind of how we kind of push all the air out. But making, like, a box fan chain is a good idea. Just make sure you're not pushing the air in. That's not safe. Yeah, but I would say box fans are a good idea. Or
do you keep them all on the ground, or do you put some up like 4 feet up in the air so it's at the top of the kiln?
I put them on the ground
because the fumes would probably be coming out. Well, I don't know. I mean, how are the fumes coming out of the kiln if you have all the plugs in and stuff? Where would they come out at?
I think they just come out everywhere.
Wherever there's a gap in the
yeah. But I mean, yeah, box fans, anything that's like pulling a lot of air. Like, you know, Rebecca Graves, her kiln room is an old paint, like room and so it has like a huge vent that goes out the ceiling, and it will literally like pull the plastic from outside in it, and it's insane.
It like sucks the door closed when you go in there. It sucks the
door closed, and like, it's insane. And so, like, that's if you can get any way to, like, suction out kind of the air, that's a good way. If you can bring air in from the opposite side of the room and out from another side of the room, that's a good way.
Right.
You know?
So if you have a window on one side,
right,
you keep a fan that's blowing air in, and then maybe you have a side door that you can open up and put a box fan in the side door that's blowing air out of the side door, or the opposite.
Right. And I know, let's see, Josh has, like, a fan in his ceiling and a fan on the wall. So it brings air in from the ceiling and out of the wall, or vice versa. I can't remember exactly which way. So that's a really good way, and he said that it's helped quite a bit with his venting. A lot of people if you just open up the freaking garage door, that's fine enough, too.
Because you're going to get a lot of air. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I'm gonna get a like a floral fan, you know, like a greenhouse fan, and I've been trying to figure out a good way to vent the back room for a really long time, so I'm excited about that. That doesn't involve hoses.
I think the main sticking point for you is the being able to get it out of the building, getting a hose. Or getting a hole somewhere that's accessible to the outdoors.
That's not going to be broken into.
Right.
Like, that's not going to be visible.
I mean, yeah, how easy is it to get a 4-inch, like, dryer vent hole that size drilled out of the building so it's just a hole that goes to the outside, and then you cap it with a one of those kind of hood caps that...
Yeah, you could do that.
Kind of like a dryer.
I mean, it would be pretty easy.
I mean, could you do that?
I've got a 4-inch drill bit, or circular saw, but the problem is that my kilns are so far apart. They're not far apart, but they're far enough apart. And the way that the dryer hose would run, I am worried about it being in the way. Also, my breaker box is behind there, so like stepping on it getting in the way. You know, I'm just concerned about the hoses.
But the risk reward, would it be better? And then how much would you have to pay for it and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So,
I'd probably have to pay $600, whereas I looked up the greenhouse fan, and that's like $200.
okay.
And
that would take enough air and quickly enough that it would
for
get
sure.
it out of the building.
Yeah, for sure. And also the greenhouse fan cools down the room. That's another thing too, is that the back room gets really, really hot with the kilns, and in the summer it gets so hot that the kilns turn off because it's too hot. So
Right.
So having a fan that's pushing out the hot air is ideal not only for the kilns but for the temperature.
Right.
So that's what I'm planning. And I was going to do it right when the coronavirus hit, by the way, which really freaking sucks. But
yeah.
So once I get a little extra cash, that's going to be the next thing.
Yeah, there are also some do-it-yourself ones. I got a couple links. We'll put them in the episode notes or something that I found.
Yeah, you can like do
your own
a dryer
Downdraft
sheet,
ones.
and then you just like put like a tiny little fan in the dryer hose. It's like a box, and then you just hook on the box to the bottom of the kiln, and that pulls out the air. It's super.
You're basically making a downdraft vent that's not a company-made one. You're kind of using a dryer vent fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the kind of cheap do-it-yourself option. The more professional options where you can get equipment that's kind of made for kilns and venting. The one is a vent hood.
Oh, I thought about a hood too. I thought about doing like a hood from a kitchen.
Yeah. So a vent hood, a name brand for that would be like Kiln, if you want to look that up. Essentially, it's the same idea as a kitchen stove. The kitchen stove puts off fumes or, you know, whatever you're cooking, and it's steaming or not steaming, but it's smoking or something like that.
Yeah.
You just need to get those fumes out. So that's essentially what a vent hood is going to do. And
I saw somebody make one with a trash can lid and a dryer hose and a fan.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. So essentially the vent hood is picture like a trash can lid. So it's a big circular thing that encompasses the width of your lid, your kiln lid. And actually it said it should be, I think, a couple inches bigger all the way around.
Yeah.
And it kind of hovers maybe 2 or 3 inches above your kiln. And there is a hole in the top of it, so it's encompassed, kind of like a dome over your kiln lid. And then there's a dryer hose that goes to the outside. And then you have probably some kind of contraption to get it off, to hang from the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then there's a vent inside of that hose somewhere, pretty much where it attaches to the dome. And it pulls air into that vent hose and out the outside. So that's what the vent hood is for. And from what I looked up, it says it doesn't actually pull fumes from the kiln itself, just the room surrounding the kiln. So that's what it would do for you, because you're not actually drilling holes and stuff in the kiln for the vent hood. You're just taking all of the fumes that are coming off of the kiln in that immediate area
and sucking them out.
And you're getting them out of the building.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I think like an overpowered fan would almost work even better, just because it's taking everything. But we'll have to see.
Yeah.
We'll test it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could probably make some kind of contraption that would be above your kilns that would kind of be like a kitchen vent, and then kind of encompass it, and then have a fan that's attached to that contraption that sucks air directly from that area only, rather than whatever's at the window, and then it sucks air from that immediate spot. And
yeah, that's true. I mean, that's true. It's like the whole trash can thing, right? Like the lid, he like cut a hole in the trash can lid and put a dryer hose in the middle of it, and then he put like a box, like a sheet box, over this fan, and that went out the window, and then you just turned the fan on and it just like blew it out the window.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if
It's just directing the air in the right spot.
Yeah.
So that it can get out.
Yeah. I'm wondering if a room that's small enough, it wouldn't matter at all, you know? Like, the room in the back isn't that big.
It depends on how much your fan is displacing the air.
That's a good point.
So that's the vent hood. The other one that is what I use is a downdraft vent, which is like an Orton Ventmaster or the Enviro Vent. I think the Enviro Vent is from Scut. And that's essentially the same idea as a dryer vent. So if you have a hose that goes from your dryer and it goes out the outside, it's pulling heat from the bottom. And so I'm trying to say the way I describe this. Pulls air from the room around the kiln, through the kiln, out of the kiln, and exhaust out of the studio to Mother Nature. So with the downdraft, you actually have holes in the top of the kiln. Depending on the size of kiln you have, the holes and spacing is going to be different. So you have holes in the top of the kiln and in the bottom of the kiln. And you have a metal, I'm trying to think of what it is. It's like a spring-loaded cup, like a metal cylinder that goes on the bottom of the kiln where those holes are in the bottom floor. And your shelf at the bottom should probably sit up about an inch or so off the bottom so that you can get air underneath that shelf and out those holes. And then that metal cup has a hose attached to it that goes to the vent, whether it's the Enviro Vent or the Ventmaster. You know, some of those might be on your floor. The vent might be on your floor, or it might be installed on the wall adjacent to it. And then from there, the vent is pulling air. And the amount of air that it is pulling air from above the kiln so that it pulls into the holes in the top, pulls it through the kiln, as well as all the toxic stuff that you don't want in that room. And then it pulls it out the holes in the bottom and then out the hose to the vent and then through the vent and out through a dryer vent hose outside.
So if you are firing your kiln inside your house, that is what you need. That's
the ideal thing that you should use. I mean, the vent hood's doable, but it's just like,
I don't think
it's a little bulky. It just seems bulkier.
Yeah, I don't think that the vent hood is any would be more effective than the vent
downdraft.
Hose, you know, the downdraft vent, and especially, I mean, safety is the number one priority, right? So like if you have a family, especially, and you have a basement. Or like you have a basement garage studio, that's going to be the utmost important, like, because air rises, you know, so like you need to get that out, you know, so that's going to be your goal. And
the other benefit of a downdraft or a vent hood is specific to that kiln, right? So if it's a downdraft, you can actually, like mine that I have, I can hook two hoses up to it. So I can vent two things at once. If it's a hood, you can't really vent two things at once because it's fit to that kiln.
Unless your hood is the whole room.
Yeah, unless your hood is humongous.
In college, we had like this big-ass hood, and they never used it. There was not even a kiln back there. We put a fridge back there and made sandwiches.
So that's kind of the difference between the two. And with the downdraft, I guess the other thing would be like propping lids and opening kilns. And with the downdraft, I never open my lid. I don't keep my lid open.
Don't need to.
I don't pull peeps out. If you're doing the cheap option, you know, there's a lot of things out there about like propping your lid for X amount of time or till whatever temperature, and keeping the peep out so that when things come out of the kiln, they can get into the room, and then you can push them out with the box fans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you would shut it at a certain time.
Side tangent. I pulled out a bunch of stuff from the kiln today, and usually I keep the peephole on the top open, and then I close the one on the bottom. That's just how I've always done it with every single kiln that I've ever had. And
So you never have a top peep open? Or you never have... There's always one peep that's never closed?
Yeah, the top one. And so I pulled a vase out today, and it had like a little tiny spot that was still bisqued. How cool is that? It was like, it was right in front of the peephole in the bottom. And it must have just like sucked in enough cold air that it just like didn't fire. And so I'm going to refire it, but it was just, I was like, that is so cool.
That was a bisque firing or a glaze firing?
It was a glaze firing, and it just had one little, like, hole, like, circle that was a bisque spot.
That doesn't sound like a good thing.
It's fine. It was right in front of the
I mean, you're
hole.
going to refire it, so.
I'm going to refire it. It's fine, but I
Right.
just thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah. So currently in your situation, you leave a peep out. That's basically the way that
Yeah.
your fumes are escaping. Okay. And then how long to vent it, I guess, would be the other thing. So I start my vent immediately when I start my kiln, and I don't turn it off until pretty much the kiln is cooled down. So with those vents, they actually recommend you can vent it all the way through the cool down and everything. It's just once it hits its top temperature, I mean, you're just going to keep cooling it. So it's not pulling that much air to where it's
Yeah.
pulling heat out of the kiln that's negatively affecting your firing. It's not pulling that much. So that's why it's fine to just vent it all the way through the cool down, and it's not going to kill anything. I mean, unless you're doing like a super slow cool down, but you're probably going to program your kiln to do that controlled cool down so that it's like a slow cool, and then it hits a certain temperature, and then it like cuts off and lets you cool regularly from there. So
Yeah.
I just do that. It's just going to, your turnaround time is going to be so much quicker. So, see, Becca, that's what I'm wondering. I feel like your cooldown would be so much faster if you were to have a vent on a kiln.
I don't want my cooldown to be faster. My glazes aren't that, like, they won't work well. They don't work well with a really fast cooldown. They bubble.
Oh, see, I don't actually know how fast. I guess from finishing it, I'll usually unload it about 24 hours after, and it'll be down. It depends. I mean, the next day I might prop it open an inch or so, and then a couple inches or whatever, and then when it's down below, like, 150 or 200 or something, I might open it up or something like that. But do you want to mention how when you open your kilns and stuff?
I feel I'm gonna get hate mail from this whole episode.
I want people to know what you can do, because you've proven that you can do certain things with when.
Well,
Because people will ask, when can you open your kiln? When's it safe to take bisque out? When's it safe to take glaze out? All that stuff. So.
Okay, I don't push bisque kilns very much. However, those are actually the kilns that you can push more than glaze. So bisque kilns, I usually unload under. I'll prop the lid at like 350, and I'll
What's
unload
prop the lid? Is that like an inch or two?
like an inch or two, and then
Okay.
I'll unload it like, well, okay. Let's start with glaze actually. So with glaze, I go from the rule of thumb of I prop the lid at 500 degrees, an inch. And then at 400 degrees, I prop it a little bit higher. And then at 300, I prop it a little bit higher. And usually around 250, I'm unloading. I've unloaded at 400 degrees before.
Holy shit.
Um,
Is that when you're saying unloading, you're not just talking you open the lid all the way and you just let it cool. You're actually taking pieces out hot at 400.
well, yeah, when you're on a time limit. Yes, I've
And
taken pieces
you're not
out
putting
at
those
400.
in cardboard boxes. You're putting those in something.
No, I have almost lit in a cart. It was so funny. I pulled a piece out for somebody. I can't remember who it was. And, like, I had to have it. It had to be out. So I pulled it out and wrapped it up in paper, and the paper started smoking.
Oh, my gosh. See, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, what material do you put that in when it's that hot?
Well, don't put it on plastic. I can tell you that. I've melted a few tables. Okay, so the reason, you're not gonna, most pottery is past the state of, what is that, thermal shock. But most pottery is past that at 400 degrees. You're not gonna ruin your pieces by opening up your kiln at 400 degrees. What you're gonna ruin is your kiln. So if I hear any cracking in my kiln, the lid's down. Now, that doesn't stop me from like opening it up, grabbing a piece, and then pulling it out. But
cracking in your kiln, do you mean the...
like the lid will crinkle a little bit, like it'll be like it'll go ting. Like
okay.
It sounds like that because it's like moving, it's like expanding and contracting because it's hitting cold air all of a sudden. So
okay.
And that's what makes a lot of cracks in lids is that, you know, that immediate hello, we just entered cold air, like let's shock you into submission. And so that's the thing, right? It's not, I am not concerned about the pottery at all. What I'm concerned about is my kiln. And so you have to be careful of that. Now, if it was an old kiln, don't give two shits. I'm going to I'm going to prop that up and it's not going to be an issue, right? But I have all brand new kilns. So, but yeah, so yes, I've unloaded at 400 degrees. I remember I didn't have a thermocouple when I used to live at the house until like way later. Thankfully, I got one. And I remember like just sitting waiting for Leavenworth and being there, like sitting in front of the kiln at 5 a.m. and Googling forums. How early can I open up the kiln? Right. And it's just like super indecisive. But exactly. I would do that like weekly because I have anxiety. So I knew the answer. But I'm like one of those people that like if I don't find the answer I'm looking for, I'll find it and I'll like search until I find the one I want. So
does that rule of thumb with the thermal shock, does that affect your pieces based on what type of work you make?
I don't know.
Whether it's functional production work or
I'm sure
student work or
oh, well, for me, no.
Sculpture,
I mean, like I try like if I have extra time, I'm going to leave the kiln until like less than 200 degrees. You know, if I'm working on Corona time, then I'm going to be like, I'll open it up at 200 degrees. I don't care. Or I'll wait until and open it up tomorrow because I'm not on a time crunch, right? But I have pulled student work out pretty quickly. I usually try to leave them in. I baby my students' work a little bit more than I do mine because they pay for it and it's their work, and I would feel terrible if it was, something I did. But I've never had any issues. I have had dunting happen for students, which was really weird. Wasn't because of, it was just too thick a glaze or something like that. But that, no firing issues. I will fire, if I am firing a bisque, I fire it extra slow because student work is there. So, I've changed a lot of my firing methods. But yeah, so glaze, I'll usually prop it up at about 500 degrees, maybe 700. And I'll do an inch at 700 until it gets to 500 degrees. And then
1,000 degrees is still red.
I mean, I've heard of people crash cooling from 1,000 to 700 really quick. But
oh my gosh.
But then I'll just slowly open up the lid more and more until it's at 280 is usually when I unload. That's my ideal temperature time. And then for bisque, I don't open it up until about 250, 290 to 250, somewhere in there. But I know people
is that just from time's sake you don't do that? Because you don't really need bisque as quickly as you need glaze stuff?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, and I've been firing for such a, I haven't been firing for such a long time, but I've been firing for a long time consistently that I know how long things take. And so I can plan it. If I can plan it out, then it's fine. But yes, the middle bisque kiln, I usually unload lower than 300 and it's fine. I know people that unload it way, way, way higher in the bisque. They don't care. But like I said, it's all about your kiln. It's not really about the pottery at that point, I think.
Yeah.
Personal opinion. When do you unload?
I think we'll answer some of the glazing questions and stuff with Josh Heim here in a future episode, but so we'll have some questions for him.
Yeah.
I'm usually never in a rush for anything, so I don't really prop lids or anything until it's, see, the small kiln, I don't have a thermocouple or anything that I can see what the actual reading is. So
yeah.
I would say I don't do anything and prop anything until like 200 probably.
Yeah, I mean,
I just
obviously
don't.
that's the most ideal situation you could live by.
Right.
Really, if you want to keep everything that you have in perfect condition,
And I
wait
vent
until it's
everything
cooled down.
continuously, so I mean it's a pretty quick turnaround for me. I don't need anything that fast, and I vent it pretty quickly, so
Yeah.
it's not a situation where I need to rush anything. But yeah. So I had a list of additional venting benefits that I got off of I think a Ceramic Arts Network link. And we'll put these in the show notes because I got a link from Ceramic Arts Network about how and why to use a kiln vent and stuff like that. And we'll link that off so you can look at the sciencey stuff that we did not cover here.
We don't do science.
But the downdraft venting can help even out your firing by pulling hot air down from the top to bottom shelving. So if your kiln fires like a cone difference or something from top to bottom because the hot air rises, do you have that with your kiln at all? Do you load it in a certain way that it negates it?
Now it's fine. Now I usually don't have any issue with that. However, in the past, my kilns, it was perfect. I wanted it to be cooler at the bottom and then hotter at the top because I had certain glazes that needed to fire cooler. So I would always put those at the bottom.
Yeah. How big of a difference was it?
That was back in the day of no cones. So
If we didn't already say this, use witness cones.
yeah, use
witness cones so you know what your kiln is actually doing.
I feel like every episode that we do of this podcast, I'm increasingly like, I just feel like it's more.
You're getting
proof
more and
that,
more higher on people's shit list.
Yeah, there's just more and more proof that I should not be giving advice.
Entertainment. It's for entertainment.
I guess. Listen, just in the future, guys, listen to Ryan. Don't listen to Becca. Listen to Ryan.
The thing is, mine's downdrafted, right?
Yeah.
But my big kiln, one of the reasons I don't glaze fire my big kiln as much is because it fires different from top to bottom. But I'm not going to risk it by not venting it. But even with my small kiln, earlier, I got to a certain temperature. My top is
Have you ever
still
tried
like
venting it
half a cone
until you reach
better.
like 5?
No,
Stop
stop venting.
Yeah.
And then
All the
push it over to cone 6.
toxins are burned out at like 2,000 degrees, aren't they?
Okay, my thing hit cone 5 at the top, which is what I wanted on my small kiln, and then I turned the top knob off. I get to the bottom, and it's cone 5 is about halfway down, or like not even started.
Uh-huh.
So I'll wait 30 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever, 30 minutes, it's down. You're saying if I were to turn the vent off after I turn the top knob off and 5 is good where I want it, just turn the vent off, and then my cones at the bottom are going to drop a lot quicker.
I don't know. I mean, you could try it.
I think that would probably work. Because essentially what happened tonight was I just gave up on it. It was like at 5.5, and I was like, man, this last half a cone takes forever. And I think it's because of the vent.
I think you need a new kiln.
Becca trying to sneak in here with new equipment. But that's an interesting idea, though. I mean, I would be willing to turn it off for 30 or 45 minutes if it means that I can get that last cone down, and then I can.
Yeah, you should try it.
The kiln will go off.
What did you glaze in? This is your small kiln?
Yeah.
Do you have any kiln that fires correctly?
I mean, what do you mean correctly? Like the same cone top to bottom?
Yeah.
No, not without some kind of intervention. Like my small kiln, I have to turn my top knob a little bit lower than my bottom knob. So when I started, I might start at like medium on top and medium and a half on the bottom. Because I know the bottom's going to take longer, so I just heat it up a little bit faster.
God, that's so much work.
And then, so I kind of offset them. If I were to do my bigger kiln, I would have to do a lot more than that. I would probably have to do like a hold at the end. And I'd have to load it in a certain way that I don't want the bottom shelf too short. You kind of want like a taller bottom shelf so it
I always
spans a
have a
wider
taller bottom
area.
shelf. Yeah.
So
I can't reach
I
the bottom
think-
shelf. That's also why.
Yeah. So that's honestly why I stopped using my bigger kiln for glaze as much, because there was so much inconsistency from top to bottom.
Ryan, you are making more things. You need to have a bigger kiln for glaze.
Well, also the last 4 months I haven't been glazing a ton, so I was like, okay, well I can use the small kiln and get stuff through quicker.
Sounds like your small kiln isn't any good either.
But the consistency is way better because I can actually see cones. If I were to do my big one, I would have to put cones in certain areas for the. But I also have half shelves in my big one, which is right where the peeps are. So it makes it harder to like organize it so that I can see cones. And I mean,
you
I've
can
fired
move
the big one.
your half shelves. A kiln is round, Ryan.
I know, but
Put it diagonally.
I can do that.
Okay, but first of all, have you changed the elements in the bottom of the big kiln?
I don't know the last time I changed them, but I mean, I could look at my log and see the last time I changed them.
Was
I feel
it
like
within
the
the
last
year?
ones I did change were the was it what?
Was it within the year?
This year?
Yeah.
No, I've only fired that kiln for bisque this year, probably like 10 times.
Okay.
I don't fire my kilns as much as you do, so.
That's true, I guess.
And I'm only firing that kiln for bisque right now. So, I don't know. It would be. See, I almost want like somebody experienced in kilns to say, okay, this is what I do. This is how I load it. This is what results I've had. This is how I've made adjustments to try to get the cones where I want
People
them. People
experienced in
the
kilns
bottom.
have kilns that fire evenly.
Even with the downdraft and like, when did you replace the element? Oh, well, the element went out at the top, so I replaced the top element. I didn't replace all the elements because the top one went out. So, I mean, that's part of it. My elements are in different states of life.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they should
That's
fire,
interesting.
you know.
No, they
So, I
should
mean,
fire
I
the
fired
same.
it where like the top got done, and then I unplugged the top band from the middle so that it didn't have any power to it. And I've done that kind of thing, which is essentially what I'm doing with the small kiln. I just have a knob associated with
Right.
it. So I've done that.
Have you also tried just not using the bottom shelf? I almost feel like you might even get more out of the kiln if you just put nothing in the bottom shelf.
Like how tall are we?
Like
how
put
tall
like
are
a
we
5-inch
here?
stilt in the bottom and just like go from there.
Can I put like spoon rests in there?
No.
Can I put something down there?
Well, yeah, you could put your non-glazed items. Sorry, your non-glazed items.
That's a waste of space. You know how I am. Also,
You don't use the kiln. You're already
What?
wasting it. You don't even use the big kiln.
I use it for bisque.
I know, but
That's
I'm
what I
talking
bisque
about a
everything
glaze
in.
kiln. Like
I
if
know,
you were
but-
glazing.
Yeah. I mean, you're saying that sounds like a waste, though. Is it worth? It's worth having something at cone 5 in the bottom that's going to get to cone 5, even
Yeah,
if the
then
top is
put
going to
your
get to cone 6.
unglazed like planter bases down there or something.
Or something that comes out good at cone 5.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then also there could be a factor. You know how I load my kilns. I mean, I pack that shit in there like crazy. So that
Yeah,
could
but so do I.
negatively. That could that negatively be affecting my consistency? And like, am I packing them too full? Is there too much mass? And there's not enough air to move around
Yeah.
to disperse the heat throughout the kiln.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
wonder
that-
if you tried to like do less on the bottom and then more on the top, or more on the bottom and less on the top.
Yeah, because the bottoms always fire cooler.
Yeah.
So maybe I'd need to pack less on the bottom, like you said, and try like a 6-inch stilt at the bottom instead of a 4-inch stilt, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'll try that.
Huh. Well, I mean, I
Kiln
also
problems.
think that maybe here's what I also think, and I know you don't believe in this opinion probably, but
You're gonna say get a new kiln.
no, I'm not. I'm not.
I know how you work.
No, I just think that spending a little money to make your pieces and your equipment work well and work the way they're supposed to work is so much better than fighting it and trying to figure out.
And trying to adjust the situation I'm in to say...
Because if you have something that's consistent all the time, you don't have to worry about your pieces. And I mean,
I just
whether
need
that
to do
means...
more trial with
whether that means
how
like,
to get it consistent.
Right. I mean, is your kiln in pieces?
No. Oh, yeah. It's in bands.
Kiln?
It's in three bands.
So have you ever tried putting the bottom band on the top and the top band on the bottom?
No, because the top band's attached to the lid.
Can you change that?
I would have to dismantle the lid from the top band, and the bottom band is also has the floor. I think the bottom actually includes the floor too.
Yeah.
So they're not really swappable.
But I mean, like, I just know from having things that never work right, and then figuring out how to either buy that thing that works right or fix it to make it work right. Having something work right and spending a little money to make it work right will save you so much time and energy and like worry in the future, and you won't have to wait for your kiln to shut off and watch the cones. That's why he was late today, because he had to watch his cones shut off.
Which I didn't actually end up waiting for because I let the kiln sitter drop.
Right. So, like, I just, having things that actually work is so much more
or
understanding
the right way to load the kiln so that it fires consistently. Because it could totally be on me that I'm loading it.
It's not.
Wrong.
It's not.
But is this, if the solution were to be like, okay, you have to replace all the elements or else you're not going to get consistent firing, like, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to spend all that money to replace elements that I know are in various parts of their life to get a consistent firing. Because that's a lot of money. I'm not going to do that right now. Plus, I know what work goes into replacing elements. I'm not going to put all that work in to replace the elements.
Then fine.
Like,
have a shitty load then. I have no sympathy for you.
For glaze.
That's bullshit. This is like, I feel like we're bickering.
I can, but there are also glazes that I can use at Cone 5 that are fine. So I think what I'm going to do is I will try the adjustment and loading. I'll space the loading out so it's a taller stilts at the bottom, and I'll space things out, and I'll put things in that I know can go to Cone 5 and they're fine if I'm still in the same situation. Fire it like I normally do, load the rest of it, and then like see what happens. You know me, I'm not going to leave a whole shelf of 5 inches empty.
I know that, but you know what? Sometimes you're wrong. And I just want you to know that putting a Band-Aid on something when it actually needs a fucking like
But how do I know what I'm doing is going to fix it? How do I know that all new elements are going to fix it?
You don't, but there's nothing wrong with replacing. Like, I have never replaced just one element. Every time I have an issue with my kilns that is an element involved, I always replace every single one of them. It just guarantees that I'm always going to get, like, start from fresh. Start from scratch. And there's, like, if there's something wrong, then I know it's not the elements. Then I know it's not any of the elements because I just put brand new ones in.
Yeah,
I mean, just think of it this way. If you get all of your elements at the same time, you should be replacing them all at the same time. That's just the way it works.
I don't get them all at the same time. I just get the one that goes out.
You should have.
It's part of the whole, like, okay, am I fixing the thing to get back to where I was? Or am I, like, I don't know. And plus I have this log of things that I've done. So it's like, how do I know what to go off of that's going to work? I don't know. It's hard.
Just don't suffer for something that can be easily
I'm not suffering. I mean,
fixed.
I'm figuring out what I need to do to get what I need to get. And if I need to load the kiln differently, then I load the kiln differently.
You're being cheap.
I am being cheap. I'll admit that. But also, it's like, you know how much work goes into changing elements. Like, if I don't want to do that. But also, is it worth the struggle to spend 4 hours replacing 4 elements?
We could live stream with
element?
you while you're replacing elements and do a drinking game to count how many times you cuss.
No.
I actually don't mind
wanna-
replacing elements at all. It's
I want to know some other people that do this. Do they always replace all the elements? That just seems like a big cost suck that it's not worth it. But is it worth it? I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
if you get your kiln from the beginning, like if you buy it brand new, like my Scott, which I bought a year ago, 2 years ago, brand new. 2 years ago, brand new, because it was right when I sold my house. If you get your kiln brand new and then you fire it all the way, like once I hit 90 firings and it started taking 13 hours for a fast glaze.
right.
Once that started happening, I was like I gotta replace all of those elements. Like
You also know that they were in the same time, right? So you know
Right.
that they started at the same time
right, but
of
like
their life.
that's the thing. If you start all at once, if you haven't started from all at once, so you don't have
No.
this, but if you started all at once, then everything after that you can say, okay, well, I know it's not this. And then if, let's say, one of your elements goes out, then you're like, well, something's wrong with this connection, right? Something's messed up with this connection because we know all of these elements were put in at the exact same time, so they have the exact same starting point. There's something to be said about starting from one solid point, you know?
Maybe there's actually, if I could get some data from like the kiln that I have and say, if you downdraft it,
Yeah.
this is what firing time you should expect for a fast glaze, for instance.
Yeah.
And then they would give me an estimated time, because the fast glaze is controlled with the Bartlett controller. Like, that is what does the programmatic way. So it should be a consistent number if you're using
Are you
a downdraft.
firing on fast?
Yeah.
Try firing on slow. Just try it. The next one, just try firing on slow.
I think I've done slow before, but it kills my... It makes everything run too much at top temp.
Oh, does it? Then maybe try medium? Because...
Yeah.
Or try and find you could take the slow and the medium all at the same, like you could kind of like do a fast at the beginning and like do a...
And then turn it off and change it to
custom-
slow, and yeah.
But you would just do a custom program in your box. And then make sure that it's at slower once you get to the top, because that's what's going to even out everything.
Okay.
Are you also holding temp?
It depends. Like, if I'm doing the big kiln, I think I'm doing like cone 5 hold X number of minutes, and then before I would do like cone 6 no hold.
Okay.
Some of that might even it out. So I think when I was pulling the top element out, I was doing like a cone 5 hold 10 minutes or something like that. And I would still have the top cone 6 would be down at a cone 5. So something like that. I don't know. I haven't fired it in so long that I would have to look at my kiln log to see what I was actually doing and what the cones ended up at. But
Yeah.
yes, I would be lost if I did not use witness cones with these kilns.
Yeah, for
Especially,
sure.
I mean, obviously the small one, I have to look at the cones to make sure. But yeah.
I wish I was rich. I would just buy you a kiln. I seriously cannot wait until the day that you give in and then you buy a brand new kiln. I know this will be probably when you're dead, but like when you buy a brand new kiln and then you're like, what have I been doing?
If the deal's good enough, maybe next year at Ensika when it's here in Cincinnati, I'll get a new kiln.
Yes, you could buy one of the floor models. Oh my God, plan on that.
That's my plan. That's what I'm saving for.
If anybody from Scott is listening, let me tell you, save one for Ryan. Preferably more than 7 cubic feet. 7 to 10. He went to 7 to 10, not a 3. He doesn't need a baby kiln again.
No, I think the one I have now is probably a 7 to 10.
Yours is 7.
23.
Yeah, yours is 7. So, if anybody from Scott is listening, save a 7 cubic foot kiln for Ryan, and I will make him buy it.
Oh, man. I'll get one. I'll get one when that comes.
Or Olympic.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not really any other equipment that I need. Like, my wheels are running well. Like, the kiln would be the next big purchase for me.
Yeah. Oh,
Big,
I actually
big purchase over like $300. You know what I mean?
Right. I actually have heard that cone art kilns are bomb.com too. So.
I don't know. I'll be on the lookout.
I've heard from various people. I don't have a cone art kiln, but I've heard from various people that that's the creme de la creme.
All right. Well, there are a few more points on here about vending benefits. I don't know. I guess we can run through the real quick. I don't know. We're at 1:30, but if you stick around this long, you might as well go another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Faster, more controlled cooling. More oxidized atmospheres for glazes. So this is talking about like brighter colors for shades of iron reds, yellows, browns. So that there was some talk in the Ceramic Arts about Ceramic Arts Network article about the kiln kind of hitting into a reduction atmosphere because the fumes are not getting out of the kiln.
Right.
And they start to reduce. So if you see some like coloration around the edges of your shelves, I think from the fumes or something like that, you may not having enough oxidation atmosphere for that kiln. So, and then there's going to be more technical stuff around the chemicals being removed from the kiln atmosphere in that article. So we're not going to go into that, but there's some science there that goes on with like when the chemicals hit the air, it produces these molecules and carbon monoxide and whatever. Right. So there's some of those sciencey things in that article, but we'll link to that and you can look at that. But anything else about venting?
I don't think so. Now that we've had a bickering fight about
cheap assness.
Yeah. See, I just needed to get back at him for putting me in the spotlight of making all the wrong choices when it comes to pottery.
You're like, at what point is your cheap assness in the negative? Hurting you. At what point is it hurting you?
I think we're there. We're there.
See that also, maybe I need to think of it as like, okay, if I were to have somebody else fire my kiln for me, would they be able to fire it? Would they be able to load a kiln and fire it for me? No. I'm the only one that would be able to do that because there's so many intricacies with my complexities of firing schedules and crap.
I think also for somebody like you, because you're a lot like my father in the way that you spend money, is the long-term investment of a kiln. You know, like how much did you buy your current kiln for? Which I know you got it for free. And
well, my small one was free. My bigger one was like a deal though.
Yeah, like a super good deal.
It was like $1,500 for the kiln and my second wheel and some other stuff. So
right, yeah. That I did the same thing a couple of years ago. But like, is the cost benefit of getting something new and not having to futz with it and having consistent results every single time, is that going to outweigh the where you currently are, you know, saying, hey, I got to work with this.
Yeah.
It's not like ideal where I want it to be. Like, if you're
they call that penny wise and dollar foolish is what they call it.
Ah, is that what it is? Yeah. I mean, I can be as cheap as the next person. Don't get me wrong, but clearly I'm not as cheap as you, but I understand why you'd want to have a cheap kiln. I get it. I understand it. And spending $2,000 on a brand new kiln is really hard. Maybe you don't get a brand new kiln. Maybe you just get a better kiln. You know, maybe you get a used kiln that's has a consistent firing schedule. You know, that's the thing, right? It's going to save you more money in the future if you can just put your crap in that kiln, let it go, and it's the same thing every single time. You never have to worry about it running, you know?
I love that.
Yeah, I can put all my stuff in my kiln, and I walk away, and I know that if it's me glazing, if I'm the one that's glazing, not a student, but if I'm the one that's glazing, nothing I have in there is going to run.
Yeah.
More than it needs to run, because I have it set up exactly how I want it. And it is like that every single time. And also, that comes into plays once it starts changing, then you're like, something's wrong.
Right.
Something's already wrong with yours. So if it starts changing even more, you won't even notice.
I'm getting even further off of the
Right,
ideal.
off of the path.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm already a little bit off the path, so it's like, if
Right.
something else goes wrong, am I just straying even further away from the path?
right.
Instead of like making my way back.
And if that means fixing your kiln, that means fixing your kiln. But if there's no way to save it to the point where it's... If you're going to be spending more money trying to fix it than buying something that's more reliable, you already know how to work on a kiln. That's the thing,
Right.
like, when like, brand new potters buy a brand new kiln, I'm like, that was a dumb decision, because buying a used kiln is so good for learning how to work on a kiln. Like, if you
get
buy
more value out of learning
Right.
that you're not getting with.
Yeah, but you've been doing this for 10 years. You know how to use a kiln. You know how to, like, change the elements. You know how to change the thermocouple. You know how to change the whatever that thingy was called that we were talking about earlier
Relay.
today. The relay. Like, you know how to do all that stuff. And that's just, like... It's like working on a brand new MacBook Pro versus working on a 2009 MacBook Pro. Like, you know everything that it can do, and you can use it to its fullest capability now because you already know what it does.
Right. And
that's
with that,
that's my motherly talk of the day.
mic drop.
My job. Yeah. Okay.
See,
that
and
is
also
all.
like,
I feel like
if the money is spent to, let's say I do replace the elements and I spend whatever $300 or whatever to replace element. I don't
Right.
know how much they cost, but whatever. That money also makes it more sellable once I do replace that, and I go through that process of
Totally.
figuring it out. If it works for me, good. If it doesn't, then maybe I sell the kiln for X amount and say, hey, it's got new elements for this
Right.
amount, and that money goes toward buying a new kiln, and it's gonna
Totally.
save me. Maybe I knock off $750 from the kiln that I'm gonna buy or something because I sell that.
Right.
Or however
Exactly. I
much.
mean, I don't know about you, but I would feel extraordinarily uncomfortable selling a kiln that didn't have elements
Brand
that
new.
I knew were, like, solid, because then I couldn't honestly be like...
I mean, I know the life of them because I said I replaced this element on firing number X
Right,
on this
right,
date,
right.
and then these
Right.
elements were replaced on X.
Yeah.
But
But, like, you're already having issues with it, and I would, like, for me, if I was selling it, it'd be really hard for me to sell. To be like...
yeah.
There's issues...
To be like, when you fire it, you're going to have to do this and this because it's not actually going to do this and this.
Yeah. I mean, most kilns have a variation from the top to the bottom. Like, that's not an uncommon situation. Like, I've had plenty of kilns that were different on the top and the bottom. But, the fact that you don't know why, that's... like, that's the thing. I mean, I've never sold a kiln for more than like $200 because every time I've sold a kiln, I'm like, please just take it out of here.
We got to factor in the size of it. I mean,
No.
no, the size of the kiln has no bearing on how much it's worth selling it for to you.
Well, one of them I got for free. A 10 cubic foot kiln I got for free. Or no, it was 7. And then the other 7 I got for like $600, and I had
Maybe I should have said the electron controller factors into it more than...
Oh, I didn't sell the electronic controller with it.
Okay.
I sold that separately for a lot of money.
Yeah, maybe that's what I should have said. Maybe I was assuming size went with electronic controller, but that's not always the case. But
Yeah. Cool. Okay, we should go.
all right, mic drop.
Mic drop.
Thanks for listening, folks.
Yeah.
If you bared with us.
All that time.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Wheel Talk. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, you could find the podcast at Wheel Talk Podcast. Or you could find myself at RD Ceramics. That's R's in Ryan, D's in Durban, Ceramics.
Or you can find me at 5 Lines Pottery Studio. That's the number 5. And don't forget, share this with your friends, like us on Instagram, and don't forget to write a review. It helps us an awful lot. Thanks.